I'm Sarah.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Maddie.
Welcome back to FNS 19. Now announcing the 3 candidates that will be moving on. Today we'll be covering the town hall meeting.
So, Ed Aya, you said that making classrooms smaller would give children more attention, but in colleges they often brag that they have a 13-to-1 student ratio, and I think recently the UNC Charlotte shooting happened where a former student shot up the school. So how can you ensure that smaller class sizes and fixing the education system is going to stop?
Well, the thing about that statistic that you see all around colleges is that, like, oh, we have a 1-to-9 ratio or a 1-to-12 ratio. The thing about that is that that's only for a specific type of classroom. Once you actually get to college and once you actually see the college experience, it's a lot of these huge classrooms or lecture halls where you go in and there's a lot of people there and there's one professor and you get a lecture, and that's not put into the statistic like it really should be. That there is a great factor in a one-to-one student to teacher kind of thing, and that individual basis teaching is a lot better than, you know, like a whole classroom of 30, 50, whatever, how many kids or students. But also on the fact of school shootings, I think that there's a lot of other factors that go into that. There's a lot of life choices you have to make in college, and that can affect a lot of people's mental health.
What are your opinions on climate change, and do you have any plans to advance the regulation?
So my views on climate change are that it is an issue, but that it's overstated. And so we need to remember that by imposing extremely harsh regulations, we could actually harm people more than the harm that the environment is going to bring on them if we impose something, say, as drastic as the Green New Deal. However, we are in favor of regulations to support a reduction in, say, pollution. We're in support of those so long as they're not too incredibly crushing.
So, for Mauled by a Dog, in the debate you talked a lot about educating the public on economics in order to help the economy. Could you explain this plan and what positive effects you hope it will have on our country?
The economy is really struggling because of people not being educated through, and not necessarily uneducated, they just don't believe that it's like their way or the highway. They have a very partisan point of view in the way that the world should, or the US should take on the economy, which makes it a lot harder to get through to actually changing any sort of policy or making the economy better. So I think one of the biggest goals would be to have a more bipartisan government, so that when it comes to the economy, we can really actually work together to create something that's better for America rather than something that's just there for one party or the other.
Mauled by a Dog, on Tuesday you said that a physical barrier on the southern border would be ineffective. So what's your strategy to secure the border?
I would say the goal would be to have more physical people at the border or more technology at the border rather than actual borders, simply because we also have issues with not having enough jobs in the US, so increasing security, if you put more money into those organizations or possibly created more branches and stuff of the security to really help with those, to enforce, you would have more jobs for the US as well as protecting without having a physical border, because you build, let's say you build like a 50-foot tall border, someone's gonna build like a 51-foot tall ladder and go right over it.
So African Americans and Caucasians use drugs at about the same rate. However, African Americans are almost 3 times more likely than white people to be arrested for using drugs. So how do you plan on fixing the clear racial bias in the criminal justice system.
And for this, I think that we need to just better educate the police force and try and eliminate any sort of discriminatory policing patterns. For example, some police stations have started using AI, which causes a sort of circle where they patrol black neighborhoods more than white neighborhoods because of the higher crime rates that have been already incarcerated, which causes them to catch more people in those areas, and the cycle continues. So I think that policing patterns need to be a little bit more broad, so that they're more, because I think the problem is not necessarily the police being like racist, but rather the policing patterns causing them to catch more ethnic groups because of where they live, right? So a police officer is more likely to patrol a poorer area than a richer area because more crimes are generally committed there. And that tends to affect African Americans disproportionately, if that makes sense.
To get a better gauge of which aspects of the law you do support, a popular person with this topic is an 11-year-old girl who is being forced to carry her rapist child.
But from what I see, it is that she is being forced to keep the baby, even though she would want an abortion. Because on one hand to me, obviously the girl is being put through a lot of mental trauma, and the financial strain on this would be hurting the family. And like obviously, physically, you're not supposed to have a child before a certain age because it can harm the body in many ways. In this case, I would use the law to say that physically it's harming the child instead of helping her and keeping the baby. And I would use the law against the keeping the baby.
Thank you for watching our coverage of the town hall meeting. Be sure to follow our Instagram at Friendship News Network.